All right, the parsha starts off, Vayere lav Hashem be'elonei mamre v'yoshev pesach ha'oel k'chaim hayoim. So Rashi says, Elonei mamre hu shenasan le'etza al hamila. He was the one that gave him the advice for the milah. So it's a big nidin in the midrashim and the rishonim. What does it mean? They gave him the etza. Hashem told him to do it. Hashem tells you to do something. You need to call your grandmother. You call your friend, and you ask your friend, "Should I do this?" Hashem said, "Well, if you're indecisive, so then." We can't really help you. You got to figure it out on your own. Avraham Avinu was able to make decisions. What was the shaila over here? So the Kliyakar takes a very different route altogether, and he says that Elonei Mamre means by the trees of Mamre. Elonei means aloinim. Aloinim are trees. The Ilonis, the trees, and he learns, and it's fascinating because he learns that from a Gemara Shabbos. The Gemara Shabbos in Lav Kuf Ches says the Minayin Lamila Shiba Isamakim. How do you know that Mila is in that place? Nemar Orla bi Ilonis. It says Orla by trees. V'nemar Orla kan. It says Orla by bris Mila also. Mala halar makom shaysa Paris. Afamila b'makom shaysa Paris. How do you know that a bris Mila is in that place in Isa Makom? Because it's a makom shaysa Paris. So just like Orla on trees is a tree that makes Paris, so too the Mila is also makom shaysa Paris. And it's interesting because the Medrash goes through that Avraham Avinu was takem asupik where he should give bris. Imin hapeh, imin ha'oizen, imin ha'leiv. Maybe he should cut off his finger, maybe he should cut off his ear, like he wasn't sure. It's interesting because the Gemara Chulun goes through this very similar cheshbon when it comes to shechita, like mechetes you should shech by the neck, maybe you cut off the tail, cut off the foot, right? And so the Medrash says that al kain nigla or Hashem al kala hilanos. Hashem made a certain ha'ora by the trees, and it was a certain ma'ar malkim for him to look by the trees to know that this is where the ikar malkim of the Paris is. And it goes weiter because it says that, what does it mean, Hushan Nasan Loi Eitza ala Mila? That was the first question that we started. He gave him an Eitza about the Mila. What do you mean? Hashem told him to do it. He didn't have any questions, right? Hashem told him to go do the Akedah. He went and did the Akedah. He didn't ask, should I? Right? So what does it mean, Hushan Nasan Loi Eitza ala Mila? So I think it's the Cheskuni, but I could be wrong with this, that says that he gave him a certain type of wood that would be able to heal or cut, right? Old people, a lot of times their wounds, they don't heal properly. So Hushanasan like Eitza alamila, Eitza miloshan Eitz, similar to Ilanus. It goes back to the same Nakuda, that he gave him an Eitz, a piece of wood, to put on the Mokam Amila to heal it, to make it better. So what's his business? What's this guy doing anything? What's the guy doing anything? Right? But the pshat is that the avoid of the Ovis Bechlal, starting from Avraham Avinu, which we mentioned last week, was very much along the lines of being Masak and the Chet of Adam Arishan, right? It's very interesting. Avraham Avinu's avodah very, very much revolved around food and feeding people and eating, right? He made an insane amount of bread for these 3 people that came, and 3 cows he shechted for them when they came. It was an insane amount of food. Why was he so busy? Why was he so busy with food? So it's very interesting. So one of the Chassidish Rebbe says that the pshat is like this: he stood under the tree while they ate. Right? So what does that mean? See, he says that the Gemara Brachas on the Avav says that ein amida elo tefillah. Standing, when the pasuk uses the term standing, it refers to davening, because like Shemini Esrei is referred to as the amida, right? So he would daven for them that they should want to eat. Like a good host wants his guests to eat. And like I'm sitting here thinking to myself, like, it's a very strange thing to say about Avraham Avinu. Why does Avraham Avinu care if you eat or if you don't eat? Right? I don't know, you go to your uncle in Baltimore for Shabbos, and he has this weird minhag of serving broccoli with the cholent, right? It's very odd. So, like, I don't know, if you don't feel too awkward, and he's not too awkward about it, say, whatever. You don't have to, right? No pressure, right? A good host is the no pressure guy, right? It's like, what's this business, right? But I don't think that's the pshat. I think that the pshat is he was davening for them that they should have. We spoke last week, we said over the Gemara in Saita, and Rashi brings it later on in the Parsha, that the pshat is that Avraham Avinu wanted these people to understand Emunah b'Hashem. And the way he would do that is, when a person doesn't eat, he's grumpy, he's grouchy, he's not in the mood, he's not interested. You give him to eat, right? The Gemara says that when you give a person to eat or to drink, he forgets about his problems. He's able to focus. And how do you become my friend? You give me something to eat, and I'm right away, by business meeting, you present the guy with a fancy steak or whatever. What's the pshat? Was the guy doing anything, right? It's because, number one, it shows that you're machshav him. And number two, you're going to be more interested in what he has to say now. and you're calmer. Your body is physiologically, you're more calm. You're more ready to listen to what he has to say. So Avraham Avinu was mispalel that these people should take to him, but not take to him because, oh, my wife made such good rugelach that you never tasted. That could be true, but that's not the point. The point is that Avraham Avinu was davening for them that they should have a psichas halev, that they should come to recognize HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And I think that's the emes. I don't know it's the emes, but that's definitely a good pshat. Okay, so what happens next in the parasha is and behold, there were three people, right? So what's this business with the three people? Who were they? Right? So they look like Arabs, but they were really Malachim, right? So the Ramban says something very interesting, and for some reason they don't teach it in the Yeshiva Ktanis, because I remember hearing it from my father the first time, and I'm like, this is so weird. I never heard this pshat before. So the Ramban brings from Maimonides, the Rambam, and Mer Nevuchim. Right? One of the svarim that the Rambam wrote was Mer Nevuchim, the Guide to the Perplexed. It's a very fascinating sefer. And the Rambam holds that this never happened physically. The three people never really showed up to Avraham Avinu. What was it? It was B'mar Nevuah. It was a Nevuah, right? So, and the Ramban takes him to task about it. The Ramban doesn't like this pshat, but he says like this. He brings a whole. The Rambam has a whole bunch of things that he says the story never really happened. There's a little B'mar HaNevuah, and the Ramban asks many kashas on this, and the Ramban says it really happened. So the Malbim says a very interesting pshat, and based on what the Malbim says, this is how I like to explain it. Pasuk says like this: what happened? He says Vayisa Eino Vayar. Yeah, he lifted up his eyes and he saw, right, the Gemara Nedarim, that if he saw something that meant that it was for Avodas Hashem, because he was in complete control, his entire body was being governed by Avodas Hashem. Now, after the Milah especially, right, the Gemara says that his Einayim, Maznayim, his Reish Agviyah weren't, he wasn't shailut on them until he was Mal. Now he was Mal, so now he's in charge of that. Right? Then there's three people standing over him. Vayar across him, and he sees them and he runs towards them. And he runs to them from the opening of the tent and he bows down to them. So what's the two vayars, right? So Rashi is ready on what's the two vayars, right? But the pshat is that on the one hand, he sees them, right? Mahu vayar beis pa'amim. What's the two vayars? Harishin kamashmai. The first one means that he saw them. V'asheni lashon havana, he understood. So I saw pshat that what this means, the lashon havana, is that a lot of times you could spend a lot of time with somebody, you don't get to fully grasp who the person is. Is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? Mativa, what's he all about? Avraham Avinu, by looking at them just one more second, he was able to chap everything about the person. Okay, nice word. Or the other night, right? But the point is like this: he saw that they were standing in one place, like they were hesitant to come towards him because they didn't want to be matriach him because he was sick from the milah. And he ran towards them to let him know that I'm not there. It's fine. But the Malbim says very different pshat. The Malbim says that the pshat is that Avraham Avinu, think about it. He was an old man, right? And he was like slipping in and out of consciousness. And his unconscious mind, he was seeing it b'nevuah, like the Rambam was saying, like the Rambam learns. And then he zones back into the Gashmistic world, and he weiter sees the exact same Mara that he's seeing when he's unconscious. He's almost like confused. Like, what am I seeing? Am I holding B'mar HaNevuah? Like a lot of times, like in your dream, you're dreaming about your surroundings, and then you wake up and it's exactly what's happening. The Rambam describes in Hilchos Yisodei HaTorah, the Rambam describes what Nevuah looks like. What the person who's experiencing a Nevuah looks like. He's seizing, he's all over the place. It's interesting, right? But when it comes to Avraham Avinu, he was like, this is how the Malbim explains it. Seems like he sees them, but he's not sure, right? So Lashon Havana means that now he understood that he's going in between these two states of mind almost, right? So now it answers the question on the Rambam, because so according to the Malbim, it sounds like he's saying that Avraham Avinu saw them b'mara. I mean, he saw them in his higher state of consciousness, if you want to refer to it like that, with the Nevuah. And then he opens up his eyes and he sees that's what's actually happening in front of him in the physical world. So that's when things start getting interesting. So then Vayar Yartz across him. Okay? That's that. And then Yukach namat mayim v'rachtu raglechem. Right? It says, take a little bit of water, wash your feet, v'ishanu tachas ha'etz, and rest under the tree. Right? Under the tree. So Avraham Avinu had a tree, stated in Chazal, that this tree was able to identify if this person was roy to come under Kanfei Hashchina or not. If this person was roy to come under Tachas Kanfei Hashchina, so then the tree would spread out its leaves over the person. And if not, it would be like that, and he would get sunburnt in the sun. And not only that, but it says in Chazal also, Avraham Avinu was Megayer people. We know that in order to be Megayer somebody, you have to have Mila and Tefillah, right? So Avraham Avinu also had a stream right near his tent, and where there was running water, where there was a mayon, so he was able to tavel people in there and was able to get them tahar. So why did he make them wash their feet? So kasover shehem arviyim, he thought that they were Arabs, that they bowed down to the dust on their feet. The hikbid shalela hachnas avodah zarah lebeis. He was makbid that he shouldn't bring any avodah zarah into his house. Avaleit shalei hikbid, Leit wasn't makbid about bringing avodah zarah into his house. So hikdam lina l'rechitza shenamar v'lina v'rachs raglechem. That he first told them to take a rest, to rest up, and then to wash their feet. Right? Rashi Vidira explains why, because if the police are going to come to his house and they're going to interrogate him and they're going to try to find, when did these people come? So if they would wash their feet, that means he's hosting guests, right? But if their feet are dirty, that means that they just came or whatever. So he'll be able to. It was for time for the police. It sounds like it was like almost a seichel de getaina, but it seems like that from here it's mashma very, very stark that it's not the way to do things. I mean, if you have emes and Mesiras Nefesh, you go all the way. You don't stop and worry about what the police are going to do. Okay, that's v'rachatz raglechem. Now how do so he bowed down to them, right? It says earlier that he bowed down to them. If they have avodah zarah on their feet, how do you bow down to them, right? So the Dachreinim learn that maybe to bow down to a person who's being avodah zarah may not be such a problem. To bow down to actual avodah zarah, that's definitely a problem. That's everyone holds it's an issue. Okay. All right. Ve'echa paslachem, v'sadu libchem. Right. Rashi goes through the whole thing over here that pas is always the most satiating food that exists. B'Torah, b'Neviim, b'Ksuvim, throughout Tanakh, we find that pas is sada the liba. It's the satiation of the heart, and it calms a person down, like we spoke before. So okay, and then he says Mari Shleishim Kemach Silas was Pesach, right? So he made them matzahs, and he tells them Ve'labaka Rotz Avram. Avram ran to get them the bakar. He ran towards the bakar to bring it to them. Vayikach ben bakar rach v'toiv, and he took a small calf that was soft and good. Vayitin al anar, he gave it to the nar, which Chazal Rashi says is Yishmael to be mechanechem b'mitzvahs. Right? It's quite interesting. In Dorish Moshe has a whole thing about chinuch on this pasuk of Vayitin al anar. He didn't tell him. He gave it to him. He showed him what to do. When you're trying to be mechanech a kid, you don't tell. Not everything is directions and rules. You show by example. Something like that. I don't remember exactly how it goes. But Mahar Lasa say he sounds like Mahari, right? Vayamaher. Vayamaher Avram Oela. Avram hurried to the tent. El Sarah. Vayomer Mahari. Again, Lashon Mahari, which means to fast, right? Velabaka Rotz Avraham. Vayamahar Lasa say 3 times Mahar and 1 time Rotz. Rotz means to run. Rotz is Lashon of Ratzon. When you have a big desire to do something, you get very excited about doing that. So Zok the Ramban. Lahagid Rev Cheshkei ben Nedivos. Avram's midah was tremendous giving. Nedivos means that when we talk about a wealthy guy, you call him an Oshir, right? An Oshir. But a guy who gives a lot of money, he's a Nadzvin, right? Kol Nediv Leiv, right? The Lashon Pasuk by the Nidvas Hamishkan. Nedivos means the simcha that a person has, the excitement that a person has to give. He gets so much chiyus from when you give it, you give it with a gishmak. Ki ha'odam hagadol asher hayu bebeisai shmoina eser shleisha meis ish shelev cherv hu zakam v'od v'cholish b'milasai. Meaning, well, what's going on over here? Avram is sick. He just had a big surgery. He's an old man, and he just had a milah, and he has all kinds of servants working for him. He has Eliezer, he has Ishmael, he has all these people that are there for him, right? Holach hu ba'atzmei oil Sarah. He himself goes to the tent of Sarah lazaris oisab asiyas alechem, to be mazaras her. See, we always understand zrizas to mean do things quickly. It means to do things efficiently. Now, sometimes the efficiency of doing something is to do it quickly, right? To do it with a gishmak, to do it, not to get bogged down by any type of atzlus, by any type of ill will towards doing this maisa. He did this all by himself, because the only thing that I can't appoint a shliach to do for me is to be me. As much as I can halachically appoint a shliach to do something, right? I have a certain ratzon. You could be memal of that ratzon. But if the ratzon is so much part of me, then even if he's 100 years old and he's 99 years old and he just had a milah, he's going to go do it himself, because that is him. It's not pshat. He technically could have asked the shliach to do it. Shlichus works. Avraham Avinu knew that shlichus works, right? He told Yishmael to go do that, right? But he wanted to be part of it also. Now, there are times, the halacha is like this, that mitzvah by yesmi b'shluchai. There are times that by a mitzvah that you can rely on a shliach, right? But it's better, meaning even if you're not going to do the whole thing, but to do some kind of ishtatvus, to participate somewhat in the mitzvah, then it shows your ratzon for the mitzvah as well. So that's what Avraham Avinu was doing over here also. Okay? Now, I want to talk a little bit weiter. Another interesting thing. Pasuk Yud Aleph says, "Avram v'Sarah zakenim bo'em bayomim." Avram and Sarah are both getting older. Chod aliyas l'Sarah chanoshim. So Sarah didn't have the physical capability of Eirach chanoshim. Rashi says Eirach nidas. She wasn't able to be a nida because she was already too old. So the Shalom Meshiv, this fascinating set of Chuvas Shalom Meshiv, Yosef Shalnatans, and he probably wrote more haskamas than anyone in history. And he wrote many svarim. He's mostly known for his chuvas, but there were malakits from a lot of his svarim on Chumash, and they put together a lot of nice things. So he says a very interesting thing. He says, "What's pshat? Avram v'Sarah is a Canaan bo'em bayomim." Right? What's the pshat in bo'em bayomim? So he says, because till 70 years old, a person still makes cheshbonos how old he is. It was 35 years ago, 45 years ago. Once he's 70, shine out. So then, every day, he makes it through the day. Baruch Hashem, he makes it through the day. Geherit from a certain Rosh Hashiva is very old. I mean, he should have Arichas Yom V'Shanim and Gesund. But I heard this many years ago when he was in his 80s. Now I think he's in his 90s. He said that when he wakes up in the morning, he pinches himself to make sure he's still there. But so it sounds like he's saying that kind of thing. So that's the pshat in bo'em bayomim. But I want to take a little deeper than that. The Gemara says in Shabbos, very famous Gemara. The Gemara Shabbos says that Allah said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to say that the Yidden sinned and they have to get punished. So Hashem goes to Avraham Avinu and he says, "You're the Baal Chesed, you're the Zayda, Rashi says in Parshas Vayechi that the Rachmanus of a Zayda on the Eneklach is Azoy Grois, right? Maybe you could have Rachmanus on the Kinder." He says, "No, they sinned. Yimachol Kedusha Shmach. You got to get rid of them." So he goes to Yankov. He says, "Yankov, that's Hagidul Bonim. Maybe, Eino Yidayim, Yaakov also says, "No, nothing doing." So he goes to Yitzchak. Yitzchak starts making cheshbonos. Yitzchak says, "Listen, how long does a person live already anyways? 70 years, max. In Bezin Shamayla, they don't punish till 20, right? So now we're down to 50. Half of the time, he's sleeping, right? So that's 25. He goes weiter, the Gemara goes with a whole cheshbon, going weiter and weiter, breaking it down, till it's like 12 and a half years. And then he basically tells Hashem that, you're going to punish somebody for 12 and a half years? It's so little, just be Michael already. So ultimately, he says, Palgi alai, palgi aloch. He says, I'll take on half, you'll take on half. He tells the Kadosh Baruch Hu, I'll deal with half, you'll deal with half. Or if not, I'll take on the whole thing, right? So I was thinking that maybe that's a pshat on what's going on in this pasuk. That the way that Yitzchak is going to stel sich aus to be matzah klal Yisrael, it's in the fact that the pasuk says that a person only lives 70 years. That's the starting point. That's the starting point that where Yitzchak is able to have this taina. I mean, how does he start the taina? He lives only 70 years. So that's bon bayama. Once a person is over 70, then he has much more b'chshivas for every day. But not only that, it's tivers because that the whole hatzalah of Klal Yisrael, of the nitzchis of Klal Yisrael, is going to come about because of this. So that's Avram v'Sar Zakenim bon bayomim. Okay, and then the pasuk says v'tachach yishar le'malei tzachakti, right? And the pasuk Tes Zayin, that's where the story of Sodom. That's where the story of Sodom happens. Vayakumu mishama anoshim vayashkifu, and the people from there got up and they started looking around. Al Pnei Sodom. Avram halach imam l'shalcham, and Avram was malav them, right? And this is where the story of Sodom happens. But it's like strange because like this is in the middle. It's almost like it happens a lot by a simcha, right? You're schmoozing with somebody, and then like you see your friend from camp that you didn't see in like 8 years. So you're like, hey, you call out to him. Then like you like sort of mush him into the conversation. You're not really talking to anybody anymore. You're in the middle of talking to Avram and Sarah over here about the besura of the Leid of Yitzchak, right? Vayashkifu pnei Sodom. Then Avram gets all fahakt with it and he starts davening for it. And then it's like, what? Stop. Stop a minute. Let's go on to the story of Sodom. The Metzias of Sodom was, they were anti-chesed, right? We know with the Sodom beds, they would chop off the feet, they would chop off the head, right? I was thinking that's probably not exactly what it was, even though that's what it says in Chazal. But Pshat is, it meant that they just didn't allow people to be themselves. They were always on top of everybody, telling everybody what to do in all kinds of different areas of their life. Totally meshugah, right? But it was the antithesis of chesed. It was going against everything that Avraham Avinu stood for. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu always the Bria is always Elu Mazeh. Whenever there's a tremendous Kayach HaKdusha, there's a tremendous Kayach HaTumah to stand up against that. So Avraham Avinu is reaching a higher level of shleimus of chesed, so then the anti-chesed regime is going to stand up even stronger to that, and going to try to knock, right? But what ends up happening is that Avraham Avinu is mispalel for them. So Avraham Avinu dealt with that. Ultimately, they ended up getting destroyed, right? Because they were taka that bad. They didn't have any, they taka couldn't exist. And it's very interesting because it says that the malachim that came to be Mavasar Avram, so one of the malachim went back to Shemaim or wherever he goes, and then the other two malachim, they went to stay by Sodom, right? And it's interesting because the pasuk says by Rashi points this out. It's a medrash that it says Anoshim by Avram. It says that Anoshim came, and by Lot it says Malachim. By Avram, he was willing to treat them nicely even if they were pasha to people. By Lot, only if you're like kosher guy, only if you're a malach, then we'll deal with you, right? But the Mefarshim speak over there, and they say a very interesting thing that in a certain oifen when they were coming to Avram Avinu to stay by Avram Avinu, they could have been anything. They were safe. Because Avraham Avinu's hashpa of Torah, Yerushalayim, is Avodas Hashem, is Chesed, they're nothing to worry about. They're nothing to lose. Masha Ein Kain, if they're going to go to Sodom, it's shaykh that Sodom could be so bad that could even have a bad hashpa on the malachim. We know this from two places. In the end of Parshas Bereshis, there were certain malachim that said that HaKadosh Baruch Hu give us the nisayon of what's going on in Elam Hazah. They came down, they were chotein, they messed up, and it was bad news, right? And also by Mitzrayim, Hashem said, "Aniv le'malach." Why couldn't a malach go into Mitzrayim? Because the Tumah was too great. So that's why when they were by Avraham Avinu, they were like, they could be like people because they didn't have to worry about anything. But they have to stand with their whole gevura of their being malachim when they were by Lot because they didn't want Sodom to have a bad hashpah on them. All right.